Welcome to the 24th Annual Induction Gala, the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. At this time, we will have the presentation of the colors by the Air Force ROTC cadets at McGavock High School.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Detail. Alt. Order. Colors. Right. Base. Forward. Arch.
Thank you. You can be seated. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Mark S. Cheney, who is the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame Board of Chairman. Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Clay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame Gala and Induction Ceremony. What a great crowd we have here tonight. I haven't seen the final number, but this is the largest crowd we've ever had. Thank you so much. Yes. It's awesome. Thank you all. This is our 24th induction ceremony, and tonight's 6 new inductees will bring our total membership to over 100. If you're joining us for the first time, we thank you for being here, and we hope you'll attend next year's event and the following years. The Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame Board of Directors extends a very special thank you to all of our sponsors, donors, and attendees. we were able to host this annual event and continue our work as Tennessee's official state aviation Hall of Fame, repository and archive for aviation history in Tennessee because of your continuing financial support. Your support funds scholarships, STEM projects, and other aviation education opportunities. And a very special welcome tonight to the Nashville Metropolitan Airport Authority, and we thank them for being our platinum sponsor this year. Nashville Airport is experiencing remarkable growth, and they've announced a landmark fiscal year marked by remarkable growth, groundbreaking partnerships, and national recognition. Nashville International Airport welcomed 24.7 million passengers, setting a new benchmark in BNA's history. And we salute Doug Crulin for his leadership during this expansion. I'd also like to say thank you to our reception sponsorships, Cirrus Aircraft of Knoxville, Tennessee, and the Knoxville Airport, along with Historical Society sponsor West Star Aviation of Chattanooga. Thank you to Coca-Cola Consolidated, Wilson Air Center, Azure Flight Support, and Niswonger Foundation for your sponsorships. The Hall of Fame appreciates the support we receive around the state and other Chattanooga, Winchester, Tri-Cities, and Smyrna. We also have a special guest tonight, the new AOPA president. We'd like to extend a very warm welcome to him. Thank you for being here. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our board of directors. Please stand as I call your name. Bob Minner, founder and treasurer. Bob Wilson, vice chairman. Clay Derryberry, secretary. Ken Franks, Scott Franks, Alan Howell, Bill Marison, Jennifer Baker, Jonathan Wicks, Deborah Baugh, and our two newest members of the board, Derek Rowe and Myron Lassiter. Thank you all. Every year, we have members of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame in attendance at the Gala and Induction ceremony. And I'd like to recognize all of the members of the Hall of Fame that are here tonight. You'll see members all having a around there. It's my understanding that we have 24 inductees here tonight. Thank you for being with us and for your ongoing support. In addition to recognizing our members that are here, we want to pay tribute to those that we have lost in the last year. They are John Ball, Fred Smith, Reese Howell, George Huddleston Jr., and General Norman Gaddis. We also lost a longtime supporter, Felix Gignard, and Major Lucky Luckadoo that we honored at last year's event with the Defender of Freedom Award. We will miss them and we honor their memory. Sponsorships are vital to the Hall of Fame. With those that have purchased reserve tables, you contribute a great deal to this event as well and make it a healthy fundraiser each year. Our entire board cannot thank you enough. We also want to recognize and thank the many volunteers that assist us with this event every year. Your help is greatly appreciated. I also want to remind everyone to participate in our silent auction over the right side of the room. The purchases from these items also help us continue our work. The auction will conclude 15 minutes after tonight's ceremony. I want to thank Governor Bill Lee, the state legislature, and other elected officials around the state that support the Hall of Fame. Please see Governor Lee's letter in your program that welcomes you and recognizes our inductees. Celebrating aviation excellence is in the DNA of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. Our new challenge coin demonstrates this, and it represents a challenge to all of us to continue to work harder to find new ways to fundraise and offset the growing expense of this event. In keeping with our commitment to honor aviation excellence, our board has decided from time to time that we will recognize extraordinary aviation businesses in our state. It is my privilege to present the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame's first Aviation Company of the Year, Westar Aviation. With more than 78 years of industry experience, Westar Aviation stands as a leading maintenance, repair, and overhaul provider. Employing over 3,000 professionals, Westar offers comprehensive services from strategically located full-service facilities in East Alton, Illinois, Grand Junction, Colorado, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Millville, New Jersey, Perryville, Missouri, and Statesville, North Carolina, as well as satellite locations in Denver, Houston, Minneapolis, Las Vegas, and Chicago. The company's extensive capabilities encompass maintenance, paint, interior, and avionics services. Supported by the largest AOG, aircraft on ground network in the country, ensuring prompt and reliable mobile repair services nationwide. In February, Westar announced a significant expansion in Chattanooga to add to their 310,000 square foot facility that includes 40,000 square feet of heated hangar, 15,000 square feet of administration and back shops, as well as a 33,600 square foot lean-to with an unfinished second floor. This expansion will break ground in the third quarter of this year and the planned completion for the fourth quarter in 2026. This expansion will bring the total square footage to almost 400,000 square feet. This nearly $32 million investment will add up to 200 new, well-paid aviation jobs over the next 5 years at Level Field. Additionally, Westar is very involved in workforce development. They create relationships with local high schools. They provide internships and opportunities for young people to begin a career in aviation maintenance. It is my pleasure to welcome Mike Dittmeyer, Vice President and General Manager of Westar Aviation Chattanooga, on the stage for the presentation. Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, Westar and Mike. Mike, if you'd like to say a few words.
I will. Mr. Board of Directors, wow, this is Schmidt. Want to thank you for even considering and selecting Westar for this this award. It doesn't go unnoticed. There's a lot of other companies out there that could be standing at this stage right now, and you chose us, so thank you for that. It's been a huge accomplishment, and a lot of it goes with the teamwork that we have at the facility as well. It's a lot of the technicians, the employees, and we wouldn't be here today even without our customers as well. So it takes all of those to make a very great company to where we're at right now today. So thank you for this, Mr. Chairman, Board of Directors. Wow, it's really truly an honor. I do want to say a couple other things. Actually, my wife doesn't know I'm bringing this up, but she said something to me this morning that kind of resonated with me. And I've only been with Westar for about 6 years. And the company I was with before, I thought I would never lead. I thought I would retire and end my career there, you know. But she goes, if somebody would have said something 10 years ago that you're going to be in Tennessee working for the company Westar in the position that I'm at right now, and receiving an award tonight, I would have said, you guys are on something. There's no way. So it's a great accomplishment, and I appreciate you standing by me, going through the roller coaster of the career that we've had, and being my rock. So appreciate you, hon, for that. A little bit about what got Westar to where we're at today. It didn't come easy, and actually it didn't even start in Chattanooga. Tennessee wasn't even on the board for Westar back in 2012. They were looking to expand into the southeast region of the United States, and the airport that they actually chose at that time or opened the doors for them was Columbia, South Carolina. So in 2012, there was a hangar that was available. We started a small, I think it was around 30,000 square foot hangar, about 30 employees. But as a business model for Westar, it's all about growth and providing just what Mark mentioned in the intro, what we can for our customers. And we were looking to grow, but Columbia wasn't, put a lot of roadblocks in the way of us growing. So Westar searched, looked around in the region, and Tennessee and Chattanooga Airport opened their arms to us coming here, and that's what got us to Chattanooga, and that's what got us to Tennessee. So I want to give a shout out to April and her team at Chattanooga. If it wasn't for you guys being a great partner and collaborating with us, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So it takes two, takes a team to get to where we're at. So great accomplishment. A lot has been done over the last 10 years. We moved to Chattanooga in 2015, and here it's 2025, and we've gone from 40,000 square feet with 35 employees. Now we're nearing up to 400,000 square feet after we build a new hangar, and right now we're a titch over 500 employees. So it's great accomplishment, great opportunity, and it's all about the customer. We want to build that customer relationship, have that service that the customer can keep coming back to, and repeat customers. And a lot of that, like I say, it comes to the technicians and the employees that we have, and without them we wouldn't have return customers. So I just want to thank everybody for this award. And another little plug, he mentioned a little bit about with our employees and training. It's actually at one of our other sites. As you know, a lot of aviation enthusiasts here, it's hard to find qualified technicians right now in the field. So we developed in 2024, January 2024, we opened up Westar Aviation Academy in our East Alton, Illinois facility. That has allowed us to train students coming in and be qualified to hit the floor when they're done, and they'll graduate with an airframe license. It's a 7-month course, and it's usually 25 students at a time. I think right now we're on our 3rd class going through, so it's been very successful. So if anybody's interested that you know of getting into this career, reach out, let them know that we got an opportunity for them. So again, Mr. Chairman, Board of Directors, all of you, thank you for this award.
Mike, congratulations. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Westar. We're looking for great things to come out of Chattanooga down there. So in closing tonight, I want to share some exciting news about the future of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame members, the late John Ball and his wife, Deborah Ball, made a generous donation of land adjacent to the Lebanon Airport, which is intended for the construction of a new home for the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame, this event, and a space for aviation STEM educational opportunities, such as an aviation library, flight simulators, and a makerspace for students to construct a small kit airplane such as a Vans RV-12. Additional funds were donated for the initial architectural concepts and plans for this facility. We're very excited about this and very near to the beginning of our fundraising process. It will be an enormous undertaking. We'll need the support of all of you and others to make this happen. When completing, this facility will also serve as an event venue for the surrounding community. We will provide additional information about further plans and a projected timeline as they become available. At the back of this room, you can view the detailed conceptual plan drawings of this project and ask questions if you wish. And tonight, for a donation of $200 towards this effort, you will receive a Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame hat, a t-shirt, and one of our challenge coins. We'll hope you'll be as excited about this as we are and are willing to contribute to this project's goals and aspirations. Thank you once again for your time and being here. And at this time, I'd like to invite fellow board member Scott Franks to come up for a couple of presentations. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Again, I want to welcome you to tonight's gala. I do serve on the board of directors and as chairman of this gala, and I want to congratulate our 2025 inductees and their families. It's been a pleasure working with each of you over the last 8 or 9 months as we've pulled everything together for tonight's ceremony. As Mark mentioned, our gala normally has around 400 to 450 attendees. This year we're pushing right at 550, so it's a record crowd, and we thank you all for being here and contributing to that crowd. One thing I want to do is briefly mention our nomination and selection process for the Hall of Fame. We get questions about this from time to time. So if you go to our website, which is listed here on the screen, you don't have to remember it, but if you just Google Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame, it will take you to our website. On the initial page, if you scroll down towards the bottom, there's a link there for the nomination form. Anyone can nominate anyone for the Hall of Fame. So don't feel like you're not qualified to nominate someone. We have a lot of inductees, as you see on the banners and in your program, from varied backgrounds of aviation. Many from not only military and civilian aviation, flight attendants, support personnel, things like that. So anyone affiliated with aviation is entitled or qualified to be in the Hall of Fame. One thing we do ask is that you submit your nominations by mid-January or so, because our board will meet usually in early February, and we'll make our selections for that upcoming year. And then we spend from early February till September putting it all together. So if anyone is interested in nominating anyone, please do so. Our inductees are only as good as the nominations we receive. So that's what we want to stress tonight. If you're looking at your program, you'll see my name's not listed there. You're probably figuring out why I'm up here tonight. We had intended to make a special presentation to Mr. Bob Minter. Unfortunately, Bob and his wife are not able to be here with us tonight. It just happened this afternoon. But we're going to go ahead and make this presentation because it will be on video and they can watch it from there. But for those of you who don't know Bob, he was the driving force behind establishing our Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. Especially in the early years, Bob and his wife Karen did a lot of the legwork to make this event happen each year. Over the years, there's been a lot of different board members, and they've handed off duties to that effect, but really this was, as we call it, Bob's baby. And Bob spent many years with the AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, and again, we wanted to recognize that. Bob is actually a member of the Hall of Fame for his aviation accomplishments. He was inducted back in 2012. But again, we wanted to recognize Bob and Karen for their work, and if any of you have ever been involved in planning, fundraising, preparations of an event like this, you know it takes more than one person to do it. There's a team that's involved. And even just like this year, I'd like to thank all of our board members and team members that have helped pull this night off. But we were planning to surprise Bob and Karen with this presentation tonight. But as you can see, the plaque that we've had made for them, we'll get it to them. But as you can see, the plaque reads, presented in recognition and appreciation for your vision, dedication, and tireless efforts in founding and establishing the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. Your commitment to preserving our state's rich aviation heritage ensures that the achievements of Tennessee's aviation pioneers, innovators, and leaders will inspire generations to come. Thank you for making our history take flight. So at this time, I would normally have asked them to come forward, but they're not here, so if I could, just get a round of applause for Bob and Karen. All right. And I will turn it back over to Clay.
At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Bob Hill with the FAA to come forward for a presentation.
Well, good evening. I know they introduced Bob, and two extra people came up here with me, so you're not looking at Bob Squared and his lovely bride, but I would like to introduce you to Mr. Merlin Grigsby and his lovely wife, Leslie. Now, I've been told this is an aviation crowd here, right? So who in aviation history, who can tell me who Mr. Charles Taylor was? Anybody? Wright Brothers mechanic. Yeah, thank you, Merlin. He was the Wright Brothers mechanic. It was Charles Taylor who designed and built the engine that powered the Wright Flyer. And about 20 years or so ago, the FAA came up with an award to honor those senior maintenance persons who have, for 50 or more years, exhibited exemplary aviation expertise, dedicated professionalism, and steadfast commitment to aviation safety. And tonight we'd like to honor Mr. Merlin Grigsby with this award. When I was, yes, thank you. Go ahead. You know, when I was putting this together for Merlin, I had to think of a mechanic that I actually knew some time ago. Many years ago, I flew DC-3s and Twin Beaches Beach 18s for a company in Ohio. And in my spare time, I'd go out and work in the maintenance shop. And there was an old World War II Korean War mechanic there that was kind of the senior mechanic. And you'd be out there trying to figure something out, and he'd always come up to you and say, "Bob, it's mechanical, it's not magical." And that phrase kind of stuck with me. But as I'm putting this package together for Merlin, I realized when your name is Merlin, it is magical. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we could have used Merlin's wizardry when we were dealing with all that Magneto malfeasance at that time. So let me tell you a little bit about the history of Merlin. He was born at a very young age. We'll kind of move that up a little bit further. Merlin began his mechanic maintenance training in September 1974 as a member of the United States Marine Corps. Thank you, sir. His training at that time was conducted at the U.S. Navy Marine Corps Training Command at Naval Air Station Millington down near Memphis. I'm sure many people remember that. Once he finished training from 1974 to 1978, he worked on A-4 attack fighter aircraft in the U.S. Marine Corps. From 1971, he left the Marine Corps, and in 1978, to 1981, he went to work for Lockheed Aircraft in Ontario, California. Also in 1981 till 1987, Merlin went to Saudi Arabian Airlines in Saudi Arabia, worked for those folks for a period of 6 years, quite a while. He left there, and in 1987 to 1988, he went and worked for Air California, AirCal, as I recall. Again, in 1988 to 1989, he was an aircraft mechanic for American Airlines that had purchased AirCal, if anybody remembers that. I certainly don't. And in 1989 to 1997, Merlin went to United Airlines. It's quite a career here. In 1997 to 1998, he was an aircraft mechanic over at FFV, which is now Embraer, here at BNA. And in 1998 to 1999, he was a technical services director working on DC-8s in Smyrna, Tennessee. And from 1999 to the present, he's been self-employed with Merlin's Avionics Service, and I think a lot of people know you from there. Pitot-static checks on airplanes. He does transponder altimeter certifications, wiring repairs, avionics work, and general troubleshooting. So he's had quite a stellar career of 51 years. So that's quite an achievement. And Merlin, it's my pleasure to issue you the Charles Taylor Master Mechanic Award from the FAA. Congratulations. Here's the award. Yeah, you want to say a word? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You want to say a couple words? I think we got a couple minutes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody's attention here. I've got my mom here tonight with me also, Edith Grigsby, 88 years young. Thank you. My wife Leslie here, and I'd like to thank all of our FAA FSDO inspectors and personnel. Thanks to Scott Franks, Ken Franks, and his trophy wife, Gail. And Bob Hill here with the FAA for submitting my name to accept this wonderful award. If I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have took better care of myself. Never planned on being rich or famous. So far, it's working out pretty good. Anyway, thanks also Clay Derryberry, his wife Brenda, and all of the board, the Aviation Hall of Fame. Thanks for my buddy Bill Barton, his wife Barbara being here this evening. It's a big thrill. Anyway, thank you so much, and enjoy your dinner and the rest of the program this evening. Thank you so very much.
And I'd like to thank everybody and the board for giving us the time to present this award to Merlin. So you all have a good dinner. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I don't know who that was over here, but yeah, RJ would have made a better speech. But some of you don't know, he's a ventriloquist. Well, he claims he's the worst ventriloquist, but anyway. At this moment, if you would please bow with me, we'll give thanks for tonight and this meal. Dear Lord God in heaven, hallowed be your great name. Thank you for life. Thank you for letting us be here tonight. We're thankful for aviation. We're thankful for what it means to all of us. We're thankful for the fellowship and the kindredness that's in it. And we're thankful tonight we can honor people who have given more than most other folks for aviation. We're extremely thankful we live in this country. And dear Father, we pray that you'll bless and help us tonight. We're thankful for this food. Bless it nourishing our bodies. Bless and help us as we go from here. Help there be more peace and less war, and more love and less hate. In Christ's name, amen. Because I fly, I laugh more than other people. I look up and see more than they. I know how the clouds feel, what it's like to have the blue in my lap, to look down on birds, to feel freedom in a thing called the stick. Who but I can slice between God's billowed legs and feel them laugh and crash with his step? Who else has seen the unclimbed peaks, the rainbow's secret, the real reason birds sing? Because I fly, I envy no one on earth. And most of us here tonight fly, and we know what that means. Welcome to the induction ceremony of the 24th induction ceremony of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. Here's how it's going to work. I will read a bio of each one of the inductees. When I'm through with that bio, I will call for the inductee and whoever else he's going to have come with him forward. And at that time, whoever's with him will get to hang the medal around his neck, and then he will be able to give some remarks at that time. We have 3 that are posthumous, and there'll be some people coming to accept for those people. They will be the 3 last ones. Now, getting here, you can come around this speaker here, or you can come around that table right there. Everything's gotten kind of, with so many people here, everything's gotten kind of crammed up a little bit. So, anyway, so with that, we shall begin. Our first inductee is Byron Conaway. Yeah. There he is. Born in 1961 and raised in Morrison Chapel, Tennessee, Byron Conaway later moved to Bolivar, where he was introduced to aviation by Billy Whitehurst, the owner of Bolivar Aviation. In the early 1980s, Byron purchased his first aircraft. He earned his private pilot's license soon thereafter. At age 22, Byron became the airport manager at Savannah-Hardin County Airport, a position he held through 1987. During this time, he also managed a crop dusting operation. In the early 1990s, Byron worked with famed aerobatic pilots Dwayne and Marion Cole. His passion for aviation led him to begin collecting unique civilian and military aircraft and memorabilia. He has owned more than 130 aircraft. With the goal of displaying his collection to the public, he opened the Sibley Air and Transportation Museum at the Selma Airport in 2015. Exhibits at the museum are arranged to especially appeal to children. Thousands of families, church groups, and students visit the museum. Visitors leave with gifts of a balsa wood aircraft and the Aviation Hall of Fame Children's Aviation Legends coloring book. Byron Conaway is an ardent, lifelong supporter of aviation and a tireless advocate for aviation and aviation history in Tennessee. He hosts events that bring folks to their airport to learn about aviation and aerospace. Byron Conaway is a local philanthropist supporting veterans and underprivileged West Tennesseans. For his exemplary service and contributions to aviation for Tennessee and our nation and the world, Byron Conaway is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. Mr. Byron Conaway, and I think his wife is coming with him.
Thank you.
And now you may speak. I think he's been preparing this speech for like 2 weeks.
Well, I've been preparing, but I don't know that I can do it. I've got my notes out here tonight, but the main thing I want to thank first is God for getting me to this point of getting up here. The next thing I want to thank Mr. Clay DeBerry for being the kind inductees tonight, and this is an unbelievable award for someone like me, rural area of West Tennessee, boy to be to receive. I thought maybe an award for maybe a Hall of Fame would be something for me tinkering with an airplane or telling a tall story about aircraft. But anyway, the committee, I'm truly proud to be here, and I thank all of you. And like I said, the members that have invited me to become Aviation Hall of Fame is the members of people that I've known for years. I've been coming to this Aviation Hall of Fame several years, and like I said, there's always people that to support other people, and I'm one of those that try to support people in aviation. I'd like to thank tonight, another special thanks to my family for coming, and I'd like for all my friends and family to at least stand up, and I want to commend them for coming and supporting me. All right. Thank y'all. They believe in a man who used love of aviation to open a museum. And I never thought when I started that I would ever have anything as such as what I've got today. I started out just collecting small ultralights and little small airplanes, and as if I'd accumulate an airplane, I think this is going to be something that would be special for me to keep, and so I'd put it back in a corner, and I think, well, maybe one of these days I'll restore that airplane. So that's how I have become with the museum, with all these airplanes that I've got today, and I really would love everyone in this room to come and see the museum at some time. Another thing is children. You know, children that, when I started off as a young guy, I was about probably 6 years old, and my mother had received a umbrella that my dad had got her for Christmas. Well, they had gone to work, and me and my brother was out at the barn. We was raised on a farm, and there was a real tall barn there with cattle in it. And I told Grandma, I said, you know, I really believe I can fly. And I had a dream. And I always said, dream, determination, and drive. I'm one that's got that. So I thought, you know, this thing has got a leather handle, and I can just feel myself gliding across the pasture. So I went to the highest point of the barn, and the next thing I knew, I was at the lowest part of the barn looking up from being knocked out. I looked up and I seen all these cattle looking at me, and I thought, Lord, I've heard people say you're going to come back as some kind of reincarnated thing like a cow, and I thought I was. But then soon after that, I got further along in life, and I decided then I wanted a career of flying because I had got a glimpse of what it would feel like to be able to fly an airplane. So from there, I started buying airplanes and trading airplanes and accumulating, like I said, for a museum later in life. And another thing I want to talk about, in my museum, I like a spark of something that other people don't have, and that's have different things for people to look at. Everybody that comes to a museum don't want to look at airplanes, so everybody's not aviators. So I started putting more into the museum of cars, boats, maybe you can look at there, motorcycles, and even washing machines. I collect washing machines. So it's always the further down the dreams you have, you've got to have that dream to keep going on with your further in aviation. And I don't ever expect any child or anybody, even older people, to come in and always have to be a pilot. You know, there's other things in aviation besides being a pilot. There's a lot of things like to be a mechanic, for example. So just because they come to see the airplanes, they may have that little spark that makes that determination and dream start coming true for them. And I would like to show a few examples here. He's got some pictures of different aircraft on there, and I'd like for y'all to look. There's some little Army planes on here, biplanes on here. We have the old Stinson. We have maybe Taylor crafts for people to look at. Every brand we try to get, but the main one that I love are the Aeronicas, because the Aeronica was my first airplane that I ever soloed. So I've still got the first airplane. It's an L-16, and that's a pretty rare little airplane for people to find. There are not very many of them left at the time. But anyway, that's all I have to say tonight, and I sure thank everyone for coming tonight, and I hope I didn't bore nobody out, because this is my first speech.
Our next inductee is Colonel Elmer K. Follis, Jr. On October 7th, 1928, Elmer Follis was raised in Memphis. He was born on October 7th, raised in Memphis, Tennessee, where he continues to live. In 1946, he entered the U.S. Marine Corps as an aviation mechanic, but had developed an intense desire to become a pilot. He soon began flying lessons on weekends. Upon his discharge from the USMC, he used his GI Bill to obtain his private license at the age of 19 and enrolled in the U.S. Air Force Aviation Cadet Program in 1951. His initial training was in the T-6 and then the F-51, earning his wings in March 1952. He then upgraded to the F-80 and reported to Kimbo Air Force Base, Korea, where he flew 100 combat missions in the RF-51 and the RF-80 during the Korean War. He also flew many photo reconnaissance missions in unarmed aircraft deep into the enemy territory during this time. He had the opportunity to meet and brief President Dwight Eisenhower on his missions. Following Korea, he served as an instructor in the T-28 and T-33 aircraft. He later served as an instructor in the Air Force Flight Museum's instructor school. In Vietnam, Follis flew numerous missions in the F-100 in support of Army and Marine ground forces. He has shared that he is most proud of supporting and saving the lives of the hundreds of young troops and their resulting subsequent generations of Americans. Colonel Follis has lived a life filled with purpose, valor, and honor. As a pilot with over 400 combat missions in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, as well as other numerous peacetime roles, his dedicated service and sacrifices are commendable. As a pilot, instructor, operations officer, transitional officer, and leader of numerous airmen and squadrons, his leadership led directly to the successful mission of the U.S. Air Force in both wartime and peacetime. During his career, Colonel Follis always strived to uphold the principles of honor, courage, and integrity. His exemplary service has been recognized by being awarded 5 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 19 Air Medals during his career. For his exemplary service and contributions to aviation in Tennessee, our nation, and the world, Colonel Elmer Follis is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. So if you'd come up. And if my notes are right, he has with him his daughter Denise Isaacs and his son Matt Van Epps. Let's see. Why don't you come around here and we'll put his This also is yours. And you can go ahead and sit. You gonna stand up here with him? Okay.
On July the 4th, 1939, a professional baseball player by the name of Lou Gehrig stepped up to a microphone in New York City, and he addressed a large crowd that had gathered there to honor him with an award. This is what Mr. Gehrig said to that audience. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. On September the 27th, 2025, an Air Force colonel by the name of Elmer Follis stepped up to a microphone in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and he addressed a large audience that had gathered there to honor him with an award. And this is what Colonel Follis told that audience. Tonight, I consider myself the happiest man on the face of the earth. That's what this award means to me. And I promise each and every one of you gathered here tonight that I will always honor it and cherish it to the end of my days. I would like to briefly just thank a couple of people for whose hard work allowed me to win this award. My two supporters, Don Kennedy and Carrie Reeder, whose hard work, perseverance, and dedication made this award possible. And then along the way, we had others such as Matt Van Epps, who contributed greatly to it. And I want you to know I sincerely appreciate all of your efforts very, very much. And to all of my neighbors, my friends, my relatives, my family who are here tonight, thank you for coming. And that's a bunch, believe me, there's a bunch of people here. And I live on a cove in Memphis, Tennessee, and I've got some wonderful neighbors. And if you go to the Bible, you will read where Jesus Christ says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I want you to know my neighbors have been reading their Bible. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. I'm Matt Van Epps, and I've got a special story to tell about Colonel Follis. And my quick background, I'm a West Point grad. I was an Army combat helicopter pilot. I flew Apaches, and then Cessna was selected for the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment out of Fort Campbell, and switched over to flying the MH-47 Golf Chinook, and a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan. And after I left active service, I went on to serve in state government. And one of those jobs in state government, I was the Assistant Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services. And I was responsible for the western 30 counties in Tennessee. So that was basically Montgomery County line south, everything west of that. And we handled field offices. We also handled state veteran cemeteries. And that's where I met Colonel Follis. I just want to mention my dad, and this is going to become clear here in a minute, but my dad, Robert, is why my brother and I are both West Point graduates. We were raised on faith, family, and freedom, and he invested in us, and it's why I'm standing here today. I want to go back to Colonel Follis's, to his bio, and I want to talk just specifically here for a minute on a couple of items. I want to fast forward to Vietnam. This is a true American hero. an absolute American hero in every sense of the word. In 1967, Elmer reported to Phu Cat, Vietnam, as Squadron Operations Officer in the F-100. He flew 300 combat missions, 31 into North Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, including the deepest penetration of North Vietnam by an F-100 at that time. He was awarded 4 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 15 Air Medals during that time. His bombing accuracy saved countless American lives in close air support. During the Battle of Dak To, he flew through a typhoon, executed an instrument approach in mountainous terrain, and dropped ordnance just 70 meters from friendly forces, halting an enemy advance. The commanding general wrote, "Today the Air Force saved me 1 battalion of men." Approximately 600 American lives were preserved in that single mission. See, when I met Colonel Follis in Memphis, he relayed this story during one of our events honoring veterans. And he proceeded to say, we never knew who we saved and if their kids are alive today because of our actions. My dad, Robert Cornell Van Epps Jr., was an infantryman, tunnel rat, in 1967 in Vietnam. And he unfortunately passed away in 2013 due to cancer from Agent Orange. But the story that he told my brother and I growing up was about the Air Force providing close air support in a mission that saved their lives. And during that day in Memphis, I stood up and I said, "Colonel Follis, sir, I think I'm one of those kids that is here today because you saved my dad's life in combat." And it is the most amazing, incredible thing. I'm so honored to be here today. This is an absolute true American hero in every single sense, who is so incredibly deserving of this award for his achievements as a pilot, an instructor, a combat leader, a NATO strategist, and as a proud Tennessean. His career reflects the highest standards of service, sacrifice, and excellence. And I'm here today because of him, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Our next inductee is Dan William Mills. Yeah. Born and raised on a family farm in Ohio, Dan Mills was introduced to aviation by his grandfather, a farmer who had earned his commercial pilot certificate and had an airstrip on the farm. His first flight was from that strip with his grandfather in his Piper Tri-Pacer. Following a successful college basketball career, Mills relocated to Lisbethton, Tennessee to attend Moody Bible Institute's Moody Aviation, where he received his A&P mechanic license, private commercial ATP certifications, instrument, float plane, AMEL, CFI, CFI-I, CFI-AMEL ratings. Mills taught at Moody for 23 years, during which time he also served as a missionary pilot with Mission Aviation Fellowship in Indonesia, as well as Africa, Georgia, which is in Russia, and Haiti. Franklin Graham of Samaritan's Purse then asked Mills to set up a Part 135 flight operation in Alaska and fly volunteer dentists and doctors into the Far East Russia. Graham and Mills would later be the first pilots to land a U.S. registered airplane in North Korea. In 2010, at age 60, Mills became the aviation teacher at Lisbethton High School, where he taught and influenced the lives and aviation careers of hundreds of students, which has led to an alumni corps of airline pilots, charter pilots, air traffic controllers, aviation mechanics, flight instructors, as well as successful members of the business community. Mills developed and taught 6 different aviation courses for students. His flight experience, as well as his experience in the classroom, led him to have a large part in the writing and later revising of the aviation courses standards taught in high schools across the state of Tennessee. Mills also developed relationships with other aviation-minded individuals to establish a program to financially assist his high school students to solo and obtain a private pilot certificate at a significantly reduced cost. Dan Mills' leadership in the field of missionary aviation, as well as his influence on countless numbers of the next generation, have led to an incredible furtherance of aviation in Tennessee and the world. Mills' primary goal was to encourage his students to become a person of integrity and to realize that every decision they make has a consequence. For his exemplary service and contributions to aviation in Tennessee, our nation, and the world, Dan Williams is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. Mr. Mills. And his daughter Kimberly and son John are coming with him, plus a couple others, and that's fine. First, let me congratulate you and present you with this plaque. And then now you may speak, sir.
All right, it's a privilege to be here. Been an aviation high school teacher at Elizabethton High School, and I thought I was going to have to quiet this crowd down, but you're awful quiet, so I won't use my techniques that I used in high school. First of all, I want to thank the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame Board of Directors for this extreme honor of being inducted in the class of 2025 Aviation Hall of Fame. My desire tonight is to share some thoughts and memories which will hopefully help you in your journey and might impact you for eternity. One of the things I've learned and continue to learn is life is not about me. When I start to allow myself to think it is, I'm confronted with the reality of just how insignificant I am, and life will continue to go on even without me. One of my goals in life is to love God and encourage and serve and help others in whatever way God allows. When I look back on my life, I realize that countless times that God orchestrated events which impact my life and the lives of my family. At the age of 93, before my dad went home to be with the Lord, he would always say, "Dan, just always remember the following 2 words, but God." Before my birth, the doctors told my parents that they would never be able to have children, but God had a different plan. Before my birth, my parents and my grandparents were farmers in Northeast Ohio, and my very first paying job was working in a neighbor's muck farm, weeding celery, and making a whopping 35 cents an hour. I learned a valuable lesson about the value of arduous work, which has served me well throughout my life. My grandfather was also a pilot who owned a Piper Tripacer, which he kept at the airstrip on the family farm. I remember asking my grandfather many times to take me flying, but it seemed like he was always either too tired or too busy, until one day he finally took me on my very first flight in an airplane. My father had dreamed about going into the Navy in World War II to fly Corsairs, but after joining the Navy, it was determined my father had high blood pressure and therefore was not able to fly. I've often told my father that if he had become a Corsair pilot, there's a very good chance he might have been shot down and died, and I would never have been born. But God did not allow that because he had a different plan. At the age of 12 years old, I felt God call me to be a missionary pilot to Borneo. I had no idea in the world where Borneo was. It's actually named Kalimantan, Indonesia. After graduating from high school, I attended a small Bible college in northeast Georgia where I played basketball and had the opportunity to score in over 1,500 points. On June 26, 1971, I had the privilege of marrying my college sweetheart, Dell Ellington. And not to brag too much, but we've just celebrated our 54th wedding anniversary this June. Yeah. Thank you. God has blessed us with 3 amazing children, a wonderful son-in-law and daughter-in-law, and 7 outstanding grandchildren. Our oldest grandson, Eli, just married his sweetheart, Presley, on May 24th. I'm going to ask my family if they would stand so you can see how blessed and proud I am of them. So, family? All right. Thank you. During my college senior year, my basketball coach, Dr. Richard Fowler, who just happens to be here tonight with his wife, Jerry, put me in touch with Don Berry, who was vice president of Mission Aviation Fellowship, MEF in California. Don said if I wanted to become a missionary pilot, I needed to go to Moody Aviation Institute's Moody Aviation Training Facility in Moody Aviation located in Elizabethton, Tennessee. I applied and was accepted, and 26 months later I graduated with my A&P and about 325 hours of flight training. Moody asked me if I had joined the staff to teach for a year, which turned into 23 years, during which time I had the privilege of training hundreds of other young men and women to become missionary pilots. In 1979, I requested a one-year sabbatical and joined MEF to fly in Borneo and fly for them in Indonesia. While there, I had the privilege of flying out of all 13 bases MA had throughout Indonesia. Upon returning to Moody Aviation, I had the opportunity of serving short-term with MEF's NGOs, flying in Lesotho Flying Doctor Service in Lesotho, Africa, and then flying a King Air 200 for the World Food Program in the former Soviet Union country of Georgia. I remembered people saying Dale and I were like the Ken and Barbie dolls, the perfect couple with the perfect family and a perfect life. Then July 26, 1988 came and our life changed forever. Our 14-year-old son Danny was home alone with his 6-year-old brother, and I was on a pilot service flight to pick up some passengers, and halfway there, ATC informed me I needed to return to my home base at Elizabethton. I figured the passengers had a change of plans and I did not need to be picked up. Upon arriving and landing at Elizabethton, I was met by another Moody Aviation flight instructor and our chief flight instructor. After shutting down the aircraft and opening the door, I was informed there had been an accident. I asked who it was, and I was told it was, our oldest son, Danny. I asked if he was alive, and they informed me he was not. Upon arriving home, I found a driveway full of police cars and a rescue squad truck. I was met by my wife, Dale, our daughter, Kimberly, and our youngest son, John. After being informed of this situation, I gathered my family together to pray for God's protection, comfort, strength, peace, wisdom, freedom from guilt. God has honored that prayer for the past 37 years. Has it been hard? Yes. Have we gotten over it? No. Parents never get over the death of a child. They may get through it, but they'll never get over it. I've read that the divorce rate for parents who have lost a child is in the 90% range. My wife and I were forced into the Bible just to survive. I'm always amazed that the Bible, written over 2,000 years ago, contained verses that are relevant to exactly what I may be going through at that exact moment. Times when our youngest son almost drowned as a small child, our daughter having an operation to save her life and the life of our oldest son, grandson, Eli. Learning our daughter at the age of 30 had a very aggressive stage 4 cancer. Experiencing skin and prostate cancer myself. I've experienced it hundreds of times throughout my lifetime. The Bible is not just a book of do's and don'ts. It's God's love letter to humans. About 2 weeks after Danny's death, I was driving to work and I said to God, "It's not fair my son was killed." Danny had just graduated from the 8th grade, where he's elected and served as student council president, played first trumpet in a band, played the sports, was working on his Eagle Scout award, and wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. I felt God telling me it wasn't fair my son was killed either. After thinking about it for a couple of minutes, I asked God, "What's the big deal? You knew in 3 days you would have your son back. So what's the big deal with 3 days?" I felt that God allowed me to realize what Jesus was possibly struggling with in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he asked his Father 3 times, "Is there any other way?" And then finally said, "Not my will, but your will be done." It might not have been the fear of the beatings, the crown of thorns, the ridicule, the physical abuse, or even the dying on the cross for my sins. Instead, it might have been that Christ realized that if he took my sins upon himself, who was sinless, his Father would have to turn his back on him. Because God cannot look at sin, and Jesus became sin for us. Wow. That is why Jesus said on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" How much does God love us? Enough to turn his back on his only Son because of what his Son did for us. If someone who is struggling with their own self-worth could only realize that the Creator of the universe loved them so much, he would be willing to ask his only Son to take our sins upon himself and then have to reject his Son for doing what he asked him to do. That, my friend, is genuine love. God's love, demonstrated in his own Son, Jesus. In 1997, Reverend Franklin Graham, head of Samaritan's Purse, asked if we would move to Alaska for a year and set up a flight operation carrying his volunteer dentist and doctor teams into far East Russia. After completing that year and returning to Elizabethton, Franklin then asked me if I would serve as Samaritan's Purse Worldwide Aviation Operation Director. During the next 2.5 years, I had the privilege of flying with Franklin on numerous trips, including a trip around the world, which included spending 3 days in Hanoi, North Vietnam. Growing up in the Vietnam War, I wondered how I'd feel landing in Hanoi. To be honest, I found myself very attracted to the city and the people of Hanoi. I also had the privilege of flying with Franklin to North Korea and becoming the first U.S. private aircraft to ever land in North Korea. We spent 5 days in the capital city of Pyongyang and experienced many memorable events. After 3.5 years with Samaritan's Purse, I felt God leading me to leave Samaritan's Purse and start an aircraft management company with a dear, very friend and fellow aviator, John Seward Jr., who's here with his wife, Julie. We determined we need a Part 135 certificate and put a King Air 200 on the certificate. Then in 2004, I felt God lead me to go with a local businessman to set up a flight operation for him. We ordered a new Citation XLS and put it on a Part 135 certificate and flew it for about 6 years. After being terminated in June 25th, 2010, I found myself at the age of 60 for the first time in my life without a job. But God had a better plan for my future. Shortly afterwards, I learned that Elizabethton High School had just started an aviation program the year before and needed an aviation teacher. I applied and was hired on the spot. Young people of Elizabethton are blessed to have a community who genuinely cares for them and is willing to do whatever they can to provide opportunities for students to reach their goals in life. In 2011, with the backing of school superintendent Mr. Ed Alexander, Elizabethton High School became the first high school in the nation to purchase a Redbird FMX full motion simulator, which currently allows for 6 different types and configurations of aircraft and has logged over 3,700 hours and about 5,100 flights. See, those are some of my students there, okay? That was a good day, all right. You know, that was a senior, I think, when they dressed up as hippies or something, back in my generation, all right? Elizabeth High School offers 6 different aviation courses, including a capstone course where students prepare to take their private pilot written exam and solo in a Cessna 172. We have had the privilege of soloing over 35 students, and several of which have gotten their private pilot certificate, some while enrolled at Elizabeth High School. One of the 5 students I had the opportunity to solo last year was a young lady named Jordan. After her 3rd flight in the Cessna 172, I said to her, "Jordan, it's not fair. I've got over 21,500 flight hours, and you only have about 5, and you flew that flight as good as I could." I'm thrilled when my students can fly or accomplish things as good or better than I can. Our students can normally solo for about $300, and get their private pilot certificate for about $3,500. You may say that's impossible in today's prices, which is normally true. But we've been blessed to put together a group of individuals, companies, and organizations who continue to give generously to our aviation program. They are excited to be part of a program that is having life-changing impacts in hundreds of young men and women's lives. I'd like to thank Tennessee Aviation Hall of Famer, retired Lieutenant Colonel Powley. Lieutenant, there he is. Okay, thank you so much for, by the way, nominating me and is a very dear friend. Bill subsidizes the cost of our students' discovery flights, solo, and private flight training by 50% through his flight foundation, 50%. So thank you so much, Bill, for your support and generosity with our students. To tell you the truth, 11 years I spent at Elizabeth as full-time aviation teacher, now 4 years as part-time aviation teacher, soloing young men and women, has been the greatest ministry opportunity and enjoyable time I've had in my whole life. Being a high school teacher has taught me many valuable lessons. First of all, I need to show my students that I really care for them as a person and am willing to take the time and ask the right questions, which will allow me to learn what they are really going through. Secondly, I need to get my students to want to know what I know. If I'm able to accomplish that, they come into my classroom or the cockpit wanting to learn. My main goal for my students is to encourage them to become a person of integrity. If I do that, I've done my job. And if they learn a little bit about aviation, that's great. I tell my young men and women that every decision they make has a consequence. I tell them that my wife and I are still dealing with the consequences of a decision our son Danny made 37 years ago. I then tell them the story of the accidental death of our son Danny. It's amazing how God continues to use Danny's death to help other parents who have just lost a child or others going through exceedingly challenging times in their personal lives. If every decision my students make has a consequence, then I must continually encourage them to make wise decisions. Nowadays, many students do not know how to make wise decisions, so we need to teach them. To me, the most critical decision a person can make determines where they will spend eternity. That, my friends, relate to what you do with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is either who he said he is, or he's the world's worst liar and greatest con artist. He's either one or the other. He can't be both. Through my words this evening, I trust that you will see I'm a person of faith, and that faith rests in what God's Son did for me over 2,000 years ago by taking my sins upon himself, being nailed to the cross and dying to that cross. Final page, okay, so you don't get tired. Luke 23:34 records what Jesus said on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. This is how Erica Kirk could say, I forgive him because of what Christ did. And now Tim Allen, the tool man, after watching Erica say that around the world, just tweeted, and because Erica forgave her husband's murder, he is able to forgive the man who killed his father 60 years ago. According to the scriptures, Christ rose from the dead on the third day and now sits in the right hand of the Father in heaven. And one day soon will be coming to get those who put their faith and trust in him. That is why I can tell people this is the best day ever. And when they ask me why, I can say because we are one day closer to Christ's return to take his children back to him, with him to heaven. One of the Bible verses I love to quote is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. In the end, it's all about God and knowing Christ. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and may this be your best day ever.
Our next inductee is General Frank M. Andrews, and this is a posthumous one. Born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, Frank Maxwell Andrews was the grandson of a Civil War soldier. He graduated from Montgomery Bell Academy in 1901 and from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in 1906. Commissioned a second lieutenant on June 12, 1906, he began a series of assignments around the world. He married Jeanette Allen, daughter of Major General Henry Allen, and in 1914, General Allen delayed the aeronautical aspirations of his son-in-law by once declaring that no daughter of his would marry a flyer. However, after the U.S. entered World War I, Andrews was assigned to the Aviation Division in August 1917 and promoted to major in April 1918. Andrews entered flight training, earning the junior aviation rating at age 34. Jeanette would eventually also obtain her private pilot license. Andrews next commanded various aviation training airfields in Texas and Florida. Following World War I, he replaced Brigadier General Billy Mitchell as Air Officer of the Army of Occupation in Germany. After additional leadership assignments, Andrews was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and Colonel in 1935. Andrews was appointed by General MacArthur to the General Headquarters Air Force, which consolidate Army Air Corps units under a single commander. Andrews was promoted to Brigadier General and to Major General less than a year later. A vocal proponent of four-engine heavy bombers, Andrews advocated the purchase of the B-17 Flying Fortress in large numbers as the Army's standard bomber. Andrews was charged with readying the entire Army for America's inevitable involvement in World War II. Excuse me. In January 1943, Lieutenant General, three-star Andrews, also appointed commander of the United States forces in the European Theater of Operations, replacing Dwight D. Eisenhower. In February 1943, Andrews was assigned as Commanding General, United States Forces, European Theater of Operations. On May 3, 1943, Andrews and 13 others perished in a crash of a B-24D Liberator in Iceland. Only the tail gunner survived. Andrews was the highest-ranking Allied officer to die in the line of duty to that time in the war. At the time of his death, he was Commanding General, United States Forces, European Theater of Operations. Andrews is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. On February 7, 1945, the previously named Camp Springs Air Base, Maryland, was renamed Andrews Air Force Base, now Joint Base Andrews, in his honor. For his exemplary service and contributions to aviation in Tennessee, our nation, and the world, General Frank M. Andrews is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. And accepting this honor, our grandson, Frank Andrews, and placing the medal on him will be Frank Andrews, a great nephew. So if they'll come forward. There they come. This plaque goes with that, and one of you can sit over there when we're through. This is the, and if you, yeah, do it where the photographer can get your picture. Yeah. And making comments for General Andrews is Scott Franks.
Thank you, Clay. And one thing that I enjoy about this position is, especially when we're doing these posthumous presentations, is doing the research on the people. General Andrews, unbeknownst to me, I only knew about a year and a half ago that he was even from Tennessee. And I don't want to repeat too much of what Clay said, but I want to go over some notes I had here. As you mentioned, General Andrews was born and raised in Nashville, graduated from Montgomery Bell Academy, MBA as we know it locally, and then went on to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, graduating in 1906. And I stop and think about that date a minute. He was a cadet at West Point when the Wright brothers flew. There was no military aviation then. The military didn't even start experimenting with aviation until 1907. They took delivery of the first Wright Flyer in 1909, and the first military squadron was not created until 1913. So when he came out of West Point, he was, of course, put into a cavalry position, but he always wanted to fly. And as Clay mentioned, his soon-to-be father-in-law, General Henry Allen, made the statement that no daughter of his would marry a flyboy. And it seems like we aviators had a reputation from the earliest days. So, but his wife also eventually became a pilot. And then after entering World War I, he was able to get into flight training and became commander over various training squadrons around the United States, leading up to World War I and during World War I. And following the war, he went to Germany to oversee the occupation of Germany. As was also mentioned, he was a sort of taken under the wing by a couple of very prominent generals, General Mitchell and General George Marshall. That would be Billy Mitchell. Those of you aviators know who Billy Mitchell was. George Marshall, of course, is the namesake of Marshall Space Flight Center down in Huntsville. And he was also a contemporary of Hap Arnold. And of course, Hap Arnold is the namesake of our own Arnold Air Force Base here in Tullahoma. Again, as he moved up the ranks, he was put into various positions and commanded there. As was mentioned, he was a vocal proponent for the B-17, which, as we all know now, essentially won the war for the United States during World War II. The powers that be at that time wanted an aircraft called the B-18, which was a twin-engine bomber, and he was so adamant about having a four-engine bomber And he actually went and gave a speech at one point telling the public that the United States Air Force was wholly unprepared for a world war. And he estimated that our Air Force at that point, this was in the mid-1930s, was probably the 5th or 6th best Air Force in the world. Well, that didn't sit too well with his superiors. So they tried to ship him off to somewhere where he would not be a thorn in their side, I guess you could say it. He was put in charge of commanding down in the Caribbean. But as fate would have it, the commanders in Washington changed, and who became the new commanders? Mitchell and Marshall. And what did they do? They pulled him right back to Washington. And so that sort of changed the course. He was put in charge of bringing the United States Air Force, or Army Air Corps as it was called then, up to readiness for World War II. And as was mentioned, he moved up through the ranks, eventually being the commander of U.S. forces in Europe. He was heavily involved in meeting with Churchill and the other leaders. I think there's some of the photos as we go through them. You'll see some photos of him with Churchill. But he also, in addition to that, he was moving up the ranks rapidly. There are some historians believe, and I know this is sort of contested by other historians, that he was on track to become the Supreme Allied Commander, which, as you know, Dwight Eisenhower eventually took that position to oversee what was known as Operation Overlord, or as we know now as D-Day. But General Andrews was heavily involved in the preparations of that as early as January of 1943. D-Day did not occur, of course, until June of 1944. But in late April of 1943, General Andrews was called back to Washington. Again, some of these historians think the purpose of that is he was going to be named Supreme Allied Commander. That's an argument for others. But they did crash, landing in Iceland to refuel, and there was General Andrews and 13 others perished in that crash. He was 59 years old at the time and was the highest ranking military officer to die in World War II at that point. One item of note, many of you have probably heard of the story of the Memphis Belle, the B-17 that they brought back after it had completed 25 missions. It toured the United States selling war bonds. Well, actually, the Memphis Belle was not the first bomber to complete 25 missions. Hot Stuff was the first one, and that's the reason they were bringing it back, and that's the reason that General Andrews was on board, as it was going to be making the circuit around the United States. But as fate would have it, that did not happen, and the Memphis Belle ended up being brought in for that purpose. Now, one thing, especially with someone like General Andrews, he's been deceased since May of 1943. So we started trying to locate the family. It was a little challenging at first, but we eventually got in touch with a great nephew, and he got us in touch with the rest of the family. So we've got 2 granddaughters and a grandson that are here with us tonight, as well as a host of great nephews, great nieces, and other extended family. And I would ask if they would all please stand. They're all over here on the wall. So the Andrews family, if you would please stand. Thank you all for being here tonight. And I'll tell you, they've come as far as Utah, Florida, as well as here in the Nashville area. So they came a long distance to be here with us tonight. So anyway, General Andrews is a Tennessee native son that we're proud to honor tonight. As was stated earlier, Andrews Air Force Base, or now Joint Base Andrews, right outside of Washington, D.C., is named in his honor. And everyone probably knows that. That is the base where the presidential aircraft are kept. Air Force One, Air Force Two, et cetera, are there at Joint Base Andrews. So anytime you hear that on the news, Andrews Air Force Base or Joint Base Andrews, that's a Tennessee boy. So with that, thank you.
Our next inductee is Captain David Chambers. Born on July the 8th, 1920 in Memphis, Tennessee, David Chambers' childhood dream was to become a pilot. As a teenager, his Aunt Connie helped him pursue this dream by loaning him money for his first flight lessons. He repaid her by working 2 jobs after school, delivering blocks of ice and working in a Goodyear store. After high school, he initially attended Memphis State University. While working as a crop duster with the onset of World War II, he soon enlisted in the Army Air Corps, where he was quickly made a flight instructor in Clarksdale, Mississippi. While there, he met, fell in love, and married Lilibeth Metz. They married in 1943 and began a loving marriage and an extraordinary life together that lasted until her death in 2007. In 1944, Chambers began his career with American Airlines, culminating as the chief pilot of flight operations in Nashville. He retired in 1980 at age 60 after 36 years of service. He was passionate about flying and flew everything from single-engine aircraft to military jets and Boeing 747s. Over the course of his career, Captain Chambers was involved in many notable and memorable events. Among his highest honors was when he was asked to organize and fly the late Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. from Memphis to Atlanta and for burial. He also organized the search to recover a Ford Trimotor airplane which had crashed in Mexico. The aircraft was located, restored, and now resides in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. Following his retirement, he also worked with NASA to launch the first space shuttle in 1981. In 1968, Captain Chambers was tapped by the Nashville Mayor, Beverly Briley, to plan, organize, and execute an air show at Nashville Berry Field Airport featuring the Blue Angels. This event would become known as Tennessee Aviation Days and would later move to Smyrna Airport, formerly the Seward Air Force Base. The TAD Air Show would continue for more than 30 years under the direction of Captain Chambers, and those he organized to pull together the very large event. His work with TAD exposed many Tennesseans to aviation. For his exemplary service and contributions to aviation in Tennessee, our nation, and the world, Captain David Chambers is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. There it comes. Then, I guess you can go over here to the. All right. You may speak if you like.
First of all, this is an amazing night. I wish my grandfather was here to be with us, but he's not. In 2010, I had the honor of being in Gatlinburg when he was awarded the Wright Brothers Award, which is pretty freaking cool. So growing up as a child, he was my dad, helped me in a lot of ways, taught me a lot of things about life. And through his stories and everything, he would always tell me, like, man, you must be a millionaire. And he'd be like, no. I just got up every day and went to work. And just, that's just something I went along with in life. Took him to show and tell a lot when I was a kid. Even my son, Chamber, took him to show and tell as a kid just to brag about how cool he was. And tonight, I'm proud to accept this award for him. But my son, chamber, which is David Chamber, which was named after my grandfather. I'd like for him to come up here. I want to give this to him. And he's probably embarrassed. But some of these guys that you see in these pictures here are people I grew up with in the airfield, like he said, with my grandfather. And it's amazing that they're able to be on the same Wall of Fame as he is. But thank you, everybody, for this. And Tom Fielder's coming up next, which is a lifelong friend. And my grandfather had a lot of inspiration to him in life as well.
I'm Tom Fielder. Captain David Chambers was my aviation mentor. I was introduced to him by Lance in the late 80s. He would have been so honored to be inducted into the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame and would be humbled to share the honor with such accomplished and distinguished inductees. Please allow me to share a little bit more about Captain David Chambers. He came from humble beginnings that were humble even before the Great Depression. His dad died when he was young. David Chambers was an honest person, but he lied about his age to take flying lessons. He built flight hours, crop dusting, and stunt flying. In the Army Air Corps, he gave primary training in PT-17s in Mississippi, where he met his beloved wife, who he called Lilibet. He would buzz her house. Lilibet's father did not like that. He figured there was a less dramatic way of courting his daughter. Lilibet and he married in 1943, and a year later, around the age of 24, he started flying for American Airlines in the DC-3. For the next 37 years, he flew almost every aircraft that American had. There were multiple highlights in his aviation career. One was being asked by American Airlines president personally to handle the distinguished transport of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from Memphis to Atlanta. This was chartered by RFK and flown in a Lockheed L-188 Electra. It had to be handled perfectly. There were security concerns. Captain Chambers couldn't even tell his family. They found out when they saw him on the news. He arranged for some of the seats to be taken out because Loretta Scott King wanted his body to be flown in the cabin and not in the cargo hold. Captain Chambers flew cargo across the Pacific in support of the Vietnam War. As mentioned previously, in the 70s, Mayor Briley asked Captain Chambers to organize the first air show. Captain Chambers said, "I don't know anything about organizing air shows." And Mayor Briley told him to figure it out. And he did, and it was a success with the Blue Angels. It was subsequently called the Tennessee Aviation Days, and he remained involved in it for years, including being its air boss. His biggest aviation achievement was becoming the chief pilot for American Airlines in Nashville, a position he held until his retirement in 1980. He started with American on the DC-3 and retired flying the 727 and checked out on the 747. Imagine that. He was proud to have been involved in aviation as it evolved. Was he a good pilot? I don't know for sure, but considering the planes he flew and the era in which he flew them, he had to have been, or he wouldn't have lived till 98 years old. He was proud of a lot of things, but nothing more than his family and his faith. He was a family man first and foremost. He loved Lilibet, his beautiful daughters, Betty and Joyce, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren. When they were young, Betty and Joyce remember how proud they were of him. They remember flying around the country and the world, sometimes with Captain Chambers at the helm. They even got the ride in the cockpit during his retirement flight in 1980. Things have changed a little bit. They remember how much he loved to fly, the spiritualness of it, the wonder of it. Many pilots have achievements. Becoming a pilot is an achievement. but few have had songs written about them. Captain Chambers has had 2 written by accomplished songwriter Karen Staley. I'd like to sing them for you now. I'm kidding. But I would like to share parts of both. This one is called Sand and Stone. He lived through the Depression and World War II, whooped some Nazis and cancer too, but never lost his positive point of view. Seems nothing gets him down. We were sitting around talking just the other night, and I asked him his secret of a happy life. He said, "Write your hurts in the sand, carve your blessings in stone. Keep the love you can, and just let the rest go. If you want to have peace like you've never known, write your hurts in the sand, carve your blessings in stone." He said, "I'm not saying times won't be hard. Sometimes you're dealt a bad hand of cards, but you can't let bitterness rule your heart, even when it breaks. I'll tell you what will kill you, anger and stress, quicker than the booze or the cigarettes. You've got to learn to forgive and forget for your own sake. When people let you down and disappoint you, remember you've been given a lot of mercy. So write your hurts in the sand and carve your blessings in stone." I like to end with the refrain of the song Karen wrote after Captain Chambers' passing in 2019. "My life was full with no regrets. Now I'm up here holding my dear Lilibet. It was the sweetest trip I've ever known, flying home." Thank you.
My name is Mike Russell, and I had the good fortune of working with Dave on Tennessee Aviation Days for 10 years. And while I had a little prepared speech, I'm not going to regurgitate everything, but there were a couple of things that were missing that I felt absolutely necessary, because knowing Dave as I did, and having the good fortune of being around him, there were some things that didn't get mentioned here earlier. There were 3 or 4 organizations which he was involved with that made Tennessee Aviation Days go for as long as it did. The Rotary Clubs of Donaldson, Hermitage, and Smyrna were absolutely adamant about it because they provided much of the support, funding to get it started, and assistance with the event during the 30 years that it went on. The, pardon me, the Tennessee Air and Army National Guard couldn't have done it without their assistance and help. The Smyrna-Rutherford County Airport Authority and the staff at the Smyrna Airport were just absolutely wonderful and made it happen. And those organizations meant a lot to Dave, and he would not be happy if we were looking down from above and saying, why didn't they get mentioned? So I wanted to make sure that those people were recognized for that. The final chapter of that air show occurred in 2001. The Blue Angels were scheduled to be our primary flight act for that event, and they were scheduled to arrive on September the 12th, which was a Wednesday. I think everybody in this room knows what happened on September the 11th. The world basically came to a halt for aviation-wise. That aspect disappointed a lot of us who were involved with that show for all those years, but it especially hit a lot of the aviation and charitable organizations throughout the Middle Tennessee area, because the funds that were raised through that air show for most of those 30 years were contributed to a number of charitable and educational organizations in the Middle Tennessee area, and that went away. I'm certain that Dave and Lilibet are sitting up there holding hands looking down on this event right now, and they're looking with love and humility and gratitude. He was a member of the greatest generation, they both were, for that matter. And I think it's absolutely mandatory that somebody say, on Dave and Lilybeth's behalf, thank you. He was a man of honor and humility and integrity, and he is deserving of this award. Thank you.
Our last inductee is William Howard Bill Freeman. Bill Freeman's Tennessee and aviation roots ran deep. Born in Nashville, he attended University School of Nashville and the University of Tennessee. He seemed to always have a deep love and passion for aviation. His first job was as a lineman at Nashville International Airport, where he worked a shift every day after school and reveled being at the airport and around the airplanes at any time. At age 16, he had the opportunity to take his first flight lesson, and it was then that he knew flying would be one of his greatest passions for the rest of his life. While aviation remained as his primary hobby, Bill's professional career was in other passions, real estate. His real estate career began in Nashville in 1965. In 1979, he co-founded Freeman Webb Company with his good friend, and their company grew to be the largest Nashville-based owner-manager of multifamily and commercial properties. Throughout the building of his company, Bill Freeman's love for aviation never wavered. Bill bought his first airplane, a Cessna 182, in the 1970s and would own many various types of aircraft over the rest of his life. Bill Freeman's love for aviation came full circle when he was appointed as the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority Board in 2016, the same airport where he has worked as a teen. He considered it a great honor to serve on the MNAA board, citing the airport as a key economic engine for the whole Southeast region. His board officer positions included chair, vice chair, and secretary. He also chaired the board's General Aviation Operations Planning Engineering Committee. Bill served on the board until 2024. Bill Freeman's love of aviation and his business success has allowed him to give back to the community. For over 20 years, he donated his planes as well as his pilot services to the Life Flight Network, a not-for-profit service to transport critically ill patients and help to save lives at no cost to the patients. In addition to Bill's aviation and business journey, his life was dedicated to his wife, Babs Tinsley Freeman, and their 3 sons, Bob, Harvey, and Mike, and grandfather to 7 grandchildren. Bill passed away in November 2024 at the age of 73. For his exemplary service and contribution to aviation in Tennessee, our nation, and the world, Bill Freeman is enshrined in the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this 27th day of September 2025. The medallion is Harvey Freeman, and placing the medallion will be Mike Freeman, and then Harvey Freeman will speak. Well, whatever.
Do it backwards. Thank you. Good. All right. Hey, first off, thank you for doing this posthumously. We never would have heard the end of it. So, my dad loved aviation, and he loved being around other pilots. And it would have meant the absolute world to him to be part of this group up here. So, thank you guys so much.
Let's give them all a big hand, please. Thank you for coming tonight. This is the biggest crowd we've ever had. We appreciate it so very much. We hope you have a safe trip home. And when I close, the silent auction will close in 15 minutes from then. At that 15 minutes or during that time, if you've bid on an item and you've got it, please take it. There'll be a table back at the back where you can take that and pay for it and take it home with you. So just have a really safe trip home. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced